Hey, it's Nancy Miller, the creator and host of Dead Sleep True Crime for Bedtime. This is a 20-minute teaser of the latest bonus episode. If you like this sample of this episode, you can hear the whole thing by becoming a paid subscriber. As you likely know, Dead Sleep is 100% independent and ad-free. I pretty much make this show myself. So your support supports my work, and hopefully my work supports you by helping you relax and listen to a good story with no loud ads, no gore, and no 911 calls. So if you like what you hear, you can subscribe via Patreon, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. There's a free month on Apple Podcasts, a free 7-day trial on Patreon. Thank you again so much for listening. In this world, there are really only two tragedies. The first is not getting what you want. And the second is getting what you want. And the second one is worse. Getting what you want. That's the worst tragedy. Those are the words, more or less, from a play by Oscar Wilde, written well over a century ago, a biting satire titled Lady Windermere's Fan. It's a sentiment I thought a lot about while I was writing this episode, about a woman who knows what she wants, or she thought she did, and as she blindly pursued getting what she wanted. Her life went from glamorous, fabulous, and flawless into a dark and desperate disaster. And I look forward to telling you all about it in the March bonus episode of Dead Sleep True Crime for Bedtime. I'm Nancy Miller, and a quick thank you for supporting this independent podcast. The story you're going to hear tonight, it's a case I've been following for months. And it just happened to reach its conclusion on International Women's Day. And I thought, what better way to honor that than with a story about this international woman of mystery. One who was embroiled in a stunning criminal scheme that caught everyone by surprise, including, it seems, the woman herself, who swore there was a terrible misunderstanding. She was innocent. But authorities said otherwise. She was far from innocent, but a dangerous criminal who led a deceptive double life, one that conned everyone because she was so pretty on the outside and yet so ugly on the inside. So who's got it right and who's got it wrong? Was she telling the truth, or was her whole life a lie? We'll explore that in this episode, in the Dead Sleep version of events. No graphic violence, but a lot of dense details and little detours to fatigue your mind, to help quiet the mind, and maybe fall asleep. It's okay. That's what this show is for, if you so choose. And again, as I record this case looks like it's closed. But you know how it is in true crime. Looks can be deceiving. And for a woman named Vanya Gabarova, looks were everything. 26-year-old Vanya was a beautician. Well, beautician doesn't quite cover it. Vanya was a highly trained expert with a very particular set of skills. Vanya specialized in eyelash extensions. a trained technician who could turn just about any set of spindly or stubby eyelid hairs and transform them into a lush canopy of thick, dark lashes that would make a client's eyes pop. A Bulgarian national making a life for herself in London, Vanya was herself the perfect walking advertisement for her beauty services. With long, shiny brown hair, big brown eyes, of course enhanced with a set of beguiling lashes impossible to find in nature. The kind you'd see drawn on an animated Disney heroine, like Princess Jasmine from Aladdin, and a fashion savvy that was as fierce as it was meticulous. In one snapshot, Vanya is seen posed in what looks like at the back of a luxury vehicle, dressed up for a night out in a black halter dress, her red lipstick in exact match for the bouquet of long-stemmed roses clutched in her perfectly manicured hands. Fueled by a strict diet of Red Bull and cigarettes, Vanya worked hard, very hard, at mastering her lash extension technique. And it is a technique. There are a few different types of lash extensions one can ask for. There's natural, cat's eye, mega volume. And unlike the fake lashes of the old days that came in a single sticky strip placed on the top of your existing eyelashes, eyelash extensions, usually made from synthetic mink, are placed individually, one by one, in between your natural hairs. And while striking, eyelash extensions are time-consuming and costly. An expert set can set you back anywhere from $150 to $550. And that doesn't include the maintenance to keep the lashes fresh. Most lash extensions last a few weeks, then have to be expertly removed by the technician. As for Vanya, she considered herself a lash artist, and she was known for giving her clients a longer, thicker style of lashes called Russian volume. Russian volume extensions were thicker, longer, in a fan-like shape, fluffy and voluminous, making the eyes look bigger, the whites of the eyes appear wider, in an overall suggestion of youth and good health. With the effect something akin to the baby schema. That is, the bigger the lashes, the bigger the eyes, the more universally cute one appears, forging a subconscious connection between those eyes and the adorable and irresistible charm found in the open and innocent gaze of a precious baby doll. For Vanya, big eyelashes meant big business, but the actual work itself came down to the details, starting with a map of where to put anywhere between 80 to 120 little tiny artificial lashes per eyelid. Using angled tweezers to select a single lash, coat that tiny lash with a pinhole-sized dot of adhesive. Then carefully and precisely insert that individual lash in between the existing ones, cautiously, evenly, perfectly. To get it right requires physical stamina, keen hand-eye coordination, a laser-like focus and attention to detail, and the steady hands of a skilled surgeon, as well as the listening skills of a therapist. Because once a client was on the table, eyes closed, no phone, no distraction, it was Vanya's job to make sure her clients felt at ease, to let any anxiety about this procedure go. No stress. And wanted to make sure anyone lying down was relaxed, calm, and comfortable. The results would be worth it. Vanya's rise as a lashfluencer was practically meteoric. In just a few years, she'd become #1, a champion, winning multiple eyelash extension competitions, and being crowned Eyelash Queen. And like any queen, what Vanya wanted most was her own castle, her own kingdom, a business that she could run as she saw fit. To do this, she needed the help of her Prince Charming, or was it loyal servant, her longtime boyfriend, Timur. It was Timur, who was also from Bulgaria, who encouraged Vanya to move to London back in 2018 so the two could be together. Timur was a little older than Vanya, in his 30s, but he was boyishly handsome and still had the physique of the champion swimmer he once was back in their native country. It appears the couple didn't yet live together, but by all accounts it was a serious and committed relationship. And Timur was devoted to Vanya. And when she told him she wanted her own beauty salon, he went to work, making it happen. It was Timur who arranged for the financing, borrowing thousands and thousands of pounds to secure the place and set up a business. Her own shop, she named, appropriately, Pretty Woman. By the spring of 2021, Vanya seemed to have everything she ever wanted. A successful business, a glamorous life, a perfect boyfriend. But back home, in Vanya's native Bulgaria, it was chaos. Bulgaria is an interesting place. Located in southern Europe, it's like a geopolitical middle child, surrounded by other bigger, more attention-grabbing countries. There's Serbia and Romania in the north, with Greece and Turkey to the south. And Bulgaria's stuck-in-the-middle geography hinted at its politics of the last couple of decades. Bulgaria had become part of the European Union in 2007, which was impressive for a post-communist country and former Soviet ally. But in the years since, rampant political corruption hampered Bulgaria's advancement as an EU country. And after years of being pulled in all different directions, Bulgarians were fed up. Throughout 2020 and 2021, they publicly protested the country's endemic corruption, happening under the country's longtime prime minister, an ex-cop, former bodyguard, and karate champion named Boyko Borisov. The protesters accused Prime Minister Borisov and his cronies of engaging in a very specific type of political corruption. That corruption is called state capture. State capture refers to a pernicious and insidious form of corruption. When government policy isn't determined by the citizens or the legislators voted in by the people, but dominated and influenced by a small number of private, often corporate powers that use sketchy backdoor bribes and dark money to ensure their specific interests are met. In Bulgaria, despite its European Union status, a country that was supposed to be the model for aspirational EU countries like Ukraine, it was a country held back by that state capture, under the influence, it seems, of a regime at odds with the European Union. Russian companies, Russian money, and the Russian government. All of this was happening a year before Russia invaded Ukraine. But the unrest happening in Bulgaria, that sense of anger and protest, led to a series of important elections called a snap election. The intention was for it to shake up the government, maybe shake off some of Parliament's dirtiest and most dysfunctional members. All of the protests and the urgency around this election prompted nationals outside of Bulgaria to step up and volunteer. This evidently included Vanya, who later claimed that she went to a community center organized by a group known as Bulgarians with British values. And it was there sometime in the spring of 2021. She said she met a little man who would have a huge impact on her life. At a glance, he was a stubby little bald man with a crinkly forehead and a forgettable face, like a human-sized thumb. His one bit of zest was a giant pair of obnoxious sunglasses, which was like hoping a couple of bacon bits could add flavor to a plain old baked potato. He was 39-year-old Bazir Zembazov. And much to her surprise, as the two started chatting, there was something about him, a man that she would later admit she described to her friends bluntly as ugly but charming. And Bazir became even more interesting when Vanya found out what he did for a living. Bazir told Vanya he worked for Interpol. Vanya was shocked. Interpol. The Interpol. The International Police. As if to prove it, he showed her some crucial pieces of ID. An official Interpol photo ID with a little microchip and everything. And then a gold badge, like a cop's badge. That one also official from Interpol. Why not show her? Bazir had nothing to hide. Working for Interpol wasn't like working for a spy agency like MI5 or the old KGB. It was like being a police officer. But for the entire world, almost. Interpol is comprised of 156 countries, and the organization is vehemently apolitical. So countries that don't play well together can still communicate through Interpol to get international crimes solved. The United States, for instance, is a member of Interpol, as is Russia. And the handful of countries not in Interpol are typically either too small to participate, like a micro-island called Tuvalu, or wholly authoritarian and isolationist, namely North Korea. Interpol was formed just over 100 years ago, in 1923, with just 20 countries, and the same ambition it has now, to be an international police force that can ensure that communication and the search for criminals can happen on a global scale. Interpol didn't chase crime, but Interpol does maintain a global database of criminals who are believed to be the worst of the worst, fugitives who are wanted for the crimes they've committed. And if they're on that list, it means they're somewhere out there on the loose. The current number of people on that list, called a red notice, is 6,612. And what people at Interpol did, at least what Bazir said he did, was collect intelligence, working with various governments through Interpol to track down the worst of the worst across 4 key categories: counterterrorism, cybercrime, organized crime, and financial crime. And that was his area. His role in Interpol, in part, was fighting corruption. It sounded complicated, but it was really quite simple. He was one of the good guys, out there catching the bad guys. Now it was Vanya's turn to reveal something about herself, something she hadn't really told anyone. A confession, something she always wanted, but never got. When she was a little girl, what she really wanted, was to be a cop. She even went to apply to be a police officer at a police training academy in Bulgaria, but was turned away because, she said, It cost a staggering sum, $700, to go to police academy. That was the kind of money she didn't have, at least not then. And so she moved on and learned to want other things, like a whole eyelash empire. But yeah, there was a time where what she really wanted was to be a police officer. Ridiculous, right? She might have expected Bazir to laugh at her. Vanya? Miss High Heels and High Maintenance? A cop? But he didn't. Quite the opposite. He encouraged her. You know, it's not too late. You could, potentially, with a little experience, go to a police school right here in the UK. Bazir wasn't making any promises, but he'd be happy to help her. If there was an appropriate opportunity in the future for her to shadow him on an assignment for Interpol, he'd let her know. And much to her surprise, not long after, in August of 2021, she heard from Bazir. He was on his way to Vienna, Austria, for a bit of reconnaissance on a dangerous criminal who was wanted by Interpol. If she was serious about becoming a policewoman, this was her chance. Vanya packed her bags. This would likely require some sunglasses, some wrinkle-free knits, and a hoodie. And with that, she headed out, leaving behind this whole superficial illusion of the pretty woman, to go hunt down some real-life bad guy.